this blustery day. It's time to relax, and we're going to take a journey with Rutilius Namatianus, a very learned and accomplished Gaul living in the very late Roman Empire and serving in the Roman administration throughout the time when it was sacked by Alaric in 410. He writes a beautiful poem in elegiac couplets on returning to Gaul after his very long service in Rome. So we will read a few excerpts from that poem, learn a bit about Rutilius himself, and a bit of the background of the historical events, and we'll also do some Latin translation. So make yourself comfortable and get ready for some pen and paper sounds. We'll use this very smooth paper, our favorite Rhodia, this fountain pen. And you might hear the wind outside, blowing the clouds and trees and leaves. But don't worry, it cannot penetrate the study or our calm serenity. Also use this pencil because I like the sounds it makes. With the Romans, as well as ancient Greeks who were traveling for state business or commercial endeavors or just on private journeys. These journeys and trips were all managed through not maps but itineraries. An itinerary was, in essence, a list of places, cities, sites along any given route, with the mileage written down and recorded from each site to site. These were the characteristic method of moving through the empire. By the late imperial period, these itineraries could include notations that would display much more information about stations essential for travelers, mansiones, places where travelers could stay or spend the night, mutationes, that were offered for simple lodgings where they could change horses, change vehicles, and civitates, or larger settlements. So you could find not only merchants, lodgings, a meal, but also other things to see and other networks. Rutilius' journey that we're going to talk about is written down very much like Odysseus' trip, and not in hexameters like Homer, but more along the lines elegiac couplets, also heavily influenced by Ovid. And all of this goes to show us Rutilius' mindset, his background culturally, geographically, and his view of the world and events that were taking place, as well as his education. Rutilius Namatianus was a native of the southern part of Roman Gaul, in or around Tolosa, modern-day Toulouse. Born around 370, he came with his father, Lacanius, who had himself an impressive career in imperial service as governor of Tuscania, which included Etruria and Umbria. He was also vicarius of Britain, imperior treasurer or comes sacrarum largitionum, as well as quaestor, which was a high post in the judiciary, and praefectus urbi, finally mayor of Rome, a position that Rutilius also held in his career, and which carried significant powers of jurisdiction. A mayor would have been responsible for overseeing major guilds and corporations, for administering the city's grain supply, managing the drainage of the river and aqueducts, as well as sewage and water systems. And in these latter, Rutilius had a particular interest. He had been well trained in classical and rhetoric literature and philosophy, and this, as well as his illustrious family connections, led to his very impressive career in Rome's imperial court, his last position being the praefectus urbi, the mayor or governor of the city of Rome in 414. Other offices Rutilius held were magister officiorum, one of the two top aides to the emperor, and in charge of the public post, public spies and diplomats. He would also have had some responsibility to deal with the damage caused by the sack of Rome in 410, with maintaining order in this disruptive political environment. And it has been surmised that he's likely to have been asked to assist in the restoration of Roman order in Gaul after the Gothic invasion. Rutilius records his thoughts and impressions of the Rome he is leaving and the sights he sees on his return to Gaul and leaving Rome. This return to Gaul was motivated by the necessity of protecting his estates and tenants back in Gaul from the depredation of all of the Goths that had been marauding Gaul. Rutilius left Rome and travelled by sea to avoid the countryside that was being ravaged and threatened by roving bands of Visigoths, and gives us his accounts of what he sees, results of the chaos unleashed by these barbarian invasions. He journeyed up the west coast of Italy to the northern city of Luna, his verse breaks off before he reaches his home in Gaul. Several of Rutilius's stops include major Italian ports, ruined cities, campsite on a beach. Throughout, he sees refugee populations, a festival in honor of the Egyptian god Osiris, ancient ruins, and an island populated by monks. He also hears stories that he accounts in his travels about different places, giving vivid descriptions. We also get some insights into the communications networks and how they were rapidly changing in this environment of an empire upon the brink of collapse. Rutilius remained passionately devoted to Rome because of his education and in his years of service. He valued Rome's cultural heritage. We read in his lines, a man returning to a home that he is not sure is still there, coming to terms with the countryside around him, representing the disintegration of this ideal of a world that he knows, as well as the prospect of losing one's identity as a citizen of Rome. In Rutilius' time, the Roman Empire found itself in the middle of a huge shift and migration of populations. The Germanic tribes having been pushed from the east, including Visigoths that went through the east and Rome and into Spain, sacked Rome several times, as well as Ostrogoths and Franks and other tribes that were pushed farther west. This caused enormous external pressure, and there was much bitter internal political strife inside Rome, as well as power play between Rome and the Germanic tribes moving in from the east. In 395, when Rutilius would have been about 25 years old, Emperor Theodosius died suddenly. He left his empire divided between his two young sons, Honorius and Arcadius. Honorius receiving Caesarship of the west and Arcadius of the east. They were very young, neither of age, and neither was very capable of this position into which he was thrust. The diplomat and general Stilicho became Honorius's regent in the west. Seeing an opportunity, Alaric, the Visigothic general, breaking his treaty with Rome, made attempts to invade the peninsula that is Italy, and in 402 he laid siege to Milan, where Honorius was trapped. His general Stilicho broke the siege defeating Alaric's army at the Battle of Pollentia. But Alaric escaped with most of his men, and Stilicho made a truce with him. However, internal bickering meant that Stilicho's enemies saw this as an act of treason. Rutilius also seems to blame Stilicho for having let the Visigoths inside the Roman Empire. Many saw Stilicho and Alaric as allies, but this alliance collapsed because Stilicho had been forced to turn his attention in 406 to another wave of Vandals, Alans, and Suevi who had crossed the Rhine and began devastating the province of Gaul, Rutilius' homeland. In the meantime, Honorius, being perceived as weak, gave way to a rebellion by Constantine III in Britain, who had declared himself Emperor of the West. Stilicho's general Sarus was unable to crush this rebellion. Although he did prevent it from coming in to Italy and Rome, while this was happening, Alaric was threatening to invade, and he demanded payment. And Stilicho, in 408, finally persuaded the reluctant and outraged Roman Senate to pay off Alaric so that he would ally with the Romans against the rebellious Constantine III from Britain. This arrangement and the anger that it had provoked went towards weakening Honorius' trust in his general Stilicho. In that same year, Arcadius, Honorius' brother, the Eastern Roman Emperor, died, leaving his young son Theodosius II as heir and emperor of the East. Rumor spread that Stilicho wanted the young Theodosius gone and would replace him with his own son. Stilicho's political opponents then fought a military coup against him in August of 408, the result of which was that he was executed with Honorius' approval. Alaric, however, still had not received the payment that the Senate had agreed to give him, and it became clear that this agreement would never be honored. In 410 came a symbolic turning point in Rome's fortunes. Alaric and his Visigoths did something unthinkable, crystallizing the apocalyptic fears of many Romans when they sacked the city itself. Even though Rome had long since ceased to be the imperial capital in administrative authority, it still remained the symbolic heart of Rome, the empire. Its sacking was a disaster that was almost incomprehensible to most of the citizens all over the empire. Despite Alaric's relatively mild treatment of the city of Rome, we see reflected in Rutilius' poem the intellectual and emotional shock of the elite Roman citizens at the sack of their city, as well as the extent of the disruption caused by waves of immigrants and displaced peoples, and internal civil strife. Rutilius, caught up in the middle of these conflicting forces and internal disputes, writes about a journey projecting changes from the city of Rome onto the landscape that he observes. The fate of the empire must have looked grim indeed to one who had helped administer the city in those late days. Unsure of what the future holds, Rutilius reasserts his allegiance to Rome by reassuring a tradition of classical literature, expressing his belief that Rome's eternal destiny is to rule. So he follows the footsteps of Aeneas, using geographical locations to evoke Roman myth and history, culture, and values. He rails against Rome's enemies, both internal and external, and also shows the intricate network of official, intellectual, and familial friendships and alliances, promising the restoration of both Rome and Gaul, with the hope of the rebuilding of a once great empire. O reader, wonder rather at my swift return, that I'm so quick to leave behind Rome's charms. For what is long to those who've loved Rome all their lives, what always gives us pleasure is not long. How greatly and how often can I count them blessed, those to whom this happy land gave birth, those proud descendants of Rome's aristocracy, enhance their family pride with civic glory. The fertile seeds of virtue sent from heaven could not have been entrusted to a better place. But lucky too the men who drew the second lot and won the right to have a Latin home. So we trust within the axis of the heavens the counsel of the highest God is held. Fate snatches me away from these beloved shores. The fields of Gaul are calling for their son. Those fields, as lovely once as now they're pitiful, are ravaged and deformed by these long wars. When times are good, ignoring home's not such a crime, but now shared losses call back native sons. Let's look now at a particular passage in the text. There's a lot of noise outside that doesn't seem to stop, so I'm hoping it's not going to disturb us, but it's been going on all week, so we just have to ignore that and hope that these soft paper sounds and Latin can take us away and make a nice cocoon and bubble away from all of the world's stress and noise. Here we have a really beautiful description of Rutilius, traveling along the Italian coast by sea. Ad versus surgit boreas, sed nos quoque remis, sugere certamus, cum tecit asta dies, proxima securum, reserat Populonia litus, qua naturalem ducit in arvasinum. Non illic positas, extolit in aethera moles, lumine nocturno conspicienda farus, sed speculam validae rupis sortita vetustas, qua fluctus domitos arduus urget apex. Castellum geminos hominum pundavit in usus, praesidium terris indiciumque fretis, agnosci nequent aevi monumenta prioris, grandia consumpsit, moenia tempus edax, sola manet interceptis vestigia moris, ruderibus latis tecta, sepulta iacent, non indignemur mortalia corpora solvi, cernimus exemplis oppida posse mori. Let's have a look at this. So, ad versus surgit boreas. Boreas, the wind and following sea, surges against or rises, lifts. Sed nos quoque remis surgere certamus, cum astra tergit dies. Or the dies here in the nominative. So we have dies tegit, and astra can be a little bit misleading, but it is in the accusative plural. The day hides the stars, and cum there. When the day hides the stars, or and the day hides the stars, covers the stars. But nos, we, quoque. Here is likewise also to remis. Those are oars in the water, oars that we're rowing. And surgere certamus, we strive to surge with our oars. So we're rowing against the boreal current and winds. Proxima securum reserat Populonia litus, qua naturalem ducit in arvasinum. So we have the litus, or the coast, being the subject, and there's our genitive, the coast of Populonia. Reserat is opened or revealed. Securum proxima. So next, the nearby coast of Populonia is revealed. Qua is where. naturalum ducit in arva sinum. You can see Rutilius is quite eloquent in his structure and choice of words. Very nice piece of late Roman poetry. So we have naturalum, which is our accusative singular. Ducit is our verb. And this in here is misleading in its placement. It's there because of the verse structure. Arwa being arable land. My O's and A's are a bit sloppy there. So Arwa, arable land or cultivated land. You could say cultivated land. Farmland. Crops. And sinum. This is a bay or curved a bay. So what happens is that the arwa, which is our collective, the cropland, ducit, it leads. And we have sinum and naturalum going together. Accusative of our preposition in movement. So to, the leads to the cropland. So where this coast of Populonia is, the cultivated land leads to a natural bay. So he's seen this from the sea. Then we have non illic positas extolit in aethera mollis, lumine nocturno conspicienda faros. Long sentence here. And we'll do it bit by bit. So, faros being the far or the lighthouse there. And conspicienda. This is not a gerundive here, or a gerund. It is indeed an adjective. And it's going with pharos. So we have a conspicuous pharos, the clue there being that pharos is a feminine noun. So yes, the gerund would look exactly like that, but in this case, it is an adjective. And not even a gerundive, because there is no sense of something needing to be done. And we have lumine nocturno. These are both in the ablative case, meaning by the light by night. There, illic, so in that place. There, positas is situated or built. This, of course, is a participle, and it is actually going with mollis, and that's not easy to see, because here we have other feminine endings, plural, and this being feminine plural here, mollis, is our rock or boulder or pylon, pier, or possibly a pylon, I would say, a big stone foundation there is situated. So we're waiting to see what happens with this non. And we've got This is lift up or raise. In Ithera, can we trust this preposition now to go with our Ithera? Yes, we can. This is the sky. So what we have here is the Pharos. Does not raise or show, send out its light that is conspicuous by night, conspicienda nocturno, into the sky on built-up piers and pylons. There's no lighthouse, no built-up lighthouse there sending its light out. Sed speculam valide rupi sortita vetus is our word, qua fluctus dominos ardus urget apex. And here we have a very interesting construction again. Our speculum, our high peak in the accusative. And we have a validae rubis. These are genitive. And sortita vetustas. Vetustas, ablative, plural, of ancients. It's a substantive. Qua fluctus domitus ardus urget apex. Here we have the rubies going with the apex in the nominative here. Apex, which is hard to see because it's got this X, and we've got another one down here, this Greek ending. And ardus as well. A very funny looking one, steep, high, urget presses. Yeah. And what else do we have here? Oh, fluctus. And that is sort of fourth declension word there in the accusative. Fluctus. Waves. A very funny one. You might be inclined to put that in the nominative, but that's our fourth declension accusative. And where? Qua. What we've got is but, said, the summit, and we have our validae. So we're going to put our rugged here, and cliff, rubis. Validae is one of those words we have to be flexible with it depending on what it's with. Here we've got a rubis, a cliff, the edge of something. So the summit of this rugged cliff by ancients, where the steep summit are apex, or ardus apex, urget presses. The subdued waves, fluctus domitos, because we have an accusative there. So in nice English then, can say that ancient people or men made in this rugged cliff a place where the high peak presses over the subdued waves. Castellum Geminos hominum fundavit in usus. Castellum, a castle or a fort, and fundavit, although this is active in appearance, we're going to say, because this is an accusative. We've got hominum geminos hominum in usus. So this castle or fort, fundavit, founded by the men, geminos in usus, for twin uses, or two reasons, twin usus. Praesidium terris, indiciumque fretis. So, as a protection for the land, and indicium fretis, to also show or indicate or signal the waves. So as Rutilius is making his way in his ship, he's watching the shores and seeing what has happened in the past, what's visible, and how man and nature have been living together and building. People have built their homes and fortresses that they might thrive there. And here we have agnosci nequent aevi monumenta prioris. Agnosci prioris. And we have there a genitive as well. Aerevi, of generations. Monumenta. There is our nominative. So our two genitives going there, and nequent is able, agnosci, to be discerned, and our negative, the monuments of the generations before, are not able to be discerned. Grandia consumpsit moenia tempus edax. Grandia, that's our accusative. Consumpsit, devoured. And I wanted to mention that before, that nice little infinitive, present passive infinitive there. But here we are at grandia consumpsit now. And consumpsit is it devoured. Moenia, grandia. There. And tempus is our nominative. So time, and edax, greedy, or how would we put it? Nice, rapacious probably, or voracious. So rapacious time has devoured these great defenses, great defenses, the mighty walls that these previous generations built. Now they stand in ruins because even the great edifices of man do not last. And I'm sure Rutilius is thinking about the grandeur of Rome and its time passing. And he's watching as its time has come to go the way of these grand monuments of ancient people long past. Sola manent interceptis vestigia muris. Of course. Manent vestigia, vestiges or traces. Muris, the defenses, these walls and battlements. Sola. So, vestiges only of these walls remain. Interceptis. They've been interrupted or they're missing. Of these great walls, only vestiges remain. Rederibus latis tecta sepulta jacent. And here we have the tecta, the roofs or tiles, right? Sepulta, buried they lie. There's our plural. Rederibus latis sepulta. So our tecta sepulta, and our lattice is wide or broad. Ruderibus, there's our ablative. And there we can say ra for ruin. Roofs. Buried roofs lie, or in nice English, roofs lie buried. And because this is ablative, we can say in or more specifically under this broad ruin. Non indigemur, mortalia corpora solvi. And here we have our Yusuf subjunctive. Let's not be indignant or upset or angry. Right, indignemur, mortalia corpora salvi. Solvi is dissolve. Mortalia corpora. That's our infinitive there. So let us not be incensed or angry at the mortality of human corpora. I think here is not necessarily bodies only, but also edifices, things that man builds. Cernimus exemplis oppida posse mori. Posse mori, can, and our infinitive die, is able to die. And cernimus, we see. Exemplis, examples, oppida, and that's accusative. So exemplis oppida together, we see the towns, an example, can die. For example, we also see that towns can die. Oppida here being a town, settlement, and eternal Rome. Orbis, the city, the eternal city, will also fall in time and be rebuilt as we will regain our calm. Have a lovely, lovely sleep and a beautiful day. Be good to yourself, my friend. Be kind to others, and